graining. We brought two people in from Scotland who were actually wood graining the way that the Capitol was wood grained originally. Nobody in the United States was doing that. There were 2 layers of beer and water paint used along the way. We knew that because as we examined the record, we found that they were buying stale beer as part of their materials.
Huh. Stale beer.
Stale beer.
And that was going into the paint.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the formula is 50% water and 50% stale beer. We want the stale beer because we don't want it to foam.
Huh.
Because once we put the track on, or the little ticking grain we call that, we don't want anything to disturb that. And stale beer works best.
And why beer? Why not just more water? What does the beer add?
Apparently, it appears to be, since carbohydrates have for millenniums been a source of binding paint, even in cave painting and things like that. It may have been honey or something that exuded out of a tree, which was the vehicle and the binder for actually holding the pigments in place. The carbohydrates appears to be what holds that pigment in place. Once the water evaporates, there it is right there. It's very vulnerable. If it gets wet again, you can wipe it right off. So then we follow that up with an oil base.
Now, you mentioned you come from a family of artisans.
Yes. My father was an auto repairman, different than auto repairmen are today. My father could cut the top off a car in some junkyard and bring it home and put it on another car.
Huh.
And he was a master at that time, of course, metal finishing. When they didn't fill, they would knock out all of the dents and finish that until there was no fill. Occasionally they would use lead, but and my grandfather the same way. So they were, I consider, artisans when it come time to work with metals. If working on a piece of metal, it got too big and stretched, they knew how to shrink it by using torches and hammer and dolly. And those arts are pretty well gone these days too.
My guest today is Mr. Bill Finch, and Bill is the master decorative painter here at the Capitol, who keeps it in just a beautiful condition. If you've ever seen the inside of the state capitol, it has very ornate work all about it. And Bill recently received a Michigan Heritage Award, and this was granted by Michigan State University in recognition of your work. Tell us a little bit about the award and how you were chosen for it.
Well, the award is based on the fact that Michigan State is the particular university in Michigan who has the assignment to collect and maintain Michigan's culture. I believe as a land-grant college that was part of its assignment, similar to Ohio State and Ohio. And so this particular group of the museum, their sole responsibility is to keep track of the culture and keep it in the record. And as part of that, seeking that culture, what I do is part of Michigan's history, the decorative arts. When the Capitol was originally built and decorated, it appears as though Michigan was really quite flush with world-class ornamental painters. Now I say world-class because like most every endeavor, there are those who are wannabes and those who really are. And Michigan was benefited by the fact that we really had world-class decorators in the state at the time. And they were called upon to apply their arts in the Capitol building. So because I'm carrying on not only that tradition, but I'm sharing it with my apprentice, those are the things that help qualify me apparently for this award.
And you received the award recently, just
Yes.
this August. It was part of the Folk Festival.
Yes.
And this is something Michigan State has every year?
Every year, yes.
And there was another recipient this year too?
Yes, there was.
Who was the other recipient?
His name was Lester. His last name escapes me.
And what was his
He was
talent?
a man in his mid-80s. He is of Finnish background, and as such, of course, was in the Upper Peninsula and part of the logging crew of men. Well, along with his skills As a logger, he also played the harmonica, a certain style of harmonica that was reminiscent of the Finnish, Swedish, Norwegian music. And because he's passing that on to his musically inclined family, he also won the reward. A pleasant man, very pleasant.
So the award, it's not just that you have these talents, but part of it is passing it on to somebody else to continue the tradition.
That's right.
So you have an apprentice.
Yes, I do.
Have you had apprentices before?
Actually, I've had Greg Hess, who is my apprentice, for 16 years now.
Huh.
And he's been all I could hope for an apprentice. What I looked for, and when I established and set up the protocol and testing for whoever would help me, I wanted a union-trained journeyman painter who was young enough to be willing to stay on long after I was gone. And I got a person who was very excited about learning more. He came, and in his words, he was pretty sure of himself and pretty arrogant about his skills, but learned that when it comes to a world-class decorative painting, it's a whole different story. Slowing down was probably the hardest thing for him to accomplish early on, because as a union-trained painter, of course, he wants to work really fast. And because of where we work in the capital, we could easily damage things en route to repairing something. Slowing down was a little test for him.
And your work is constant. I mean, there's always some area in the capital where you're engaged.
Yes. We have what I've affectionately called the human zone, about the first 7 feet, which gets the touchy-feely, the banging by a cart or a ladder that's being carried by someone. And so that is our first order of attention, as well as touching up regularly the wainscot. It gets damaged in every area of the building, in the Senate chamber, the House chambers, Supreme Court room, in the rotunda, throughout the corridors. And he's had that assignment for about 5 or 6 years, maybe even longer, I forget exactly. But we actually mix up our own chemistry. We make our own 2 stains, a light and a dark, so that whatever we have to repair, we use either the light or the dark, or the combination of the 2, so that our repairs are not noticeable. And that's the way that we keep it looking good. Some people think that in 1992, September, since we had a rededication of the building, that the restoration was over. But in fact, it was not. The 4th floor on the west side, the west wing, was not restored. In 2000, money was made available for us to replaster the walls, ceilings, and new cornice. Well, of course, we painted the field colors on at that time, soon thereafter, 2001. But we'd never had an opportunity to get in there and actually complete the restoration on the decoration on those ceilings. It's a beautiful volute and mosaic decoration that is looks the same as the one on the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor, because originally you could walk in on the 2nd floor, which was the State Library, and look right up through an atrium and see all of those ceilings. And so because of that, and his need to really do more than repairs, get involved in a large surface, just a year ago last month, we began the process of doing one of those rooms. And that was his first opportunity to see how do you make the patterns, how you expand a pattern to make fit the space, how to execute it. He was used to using bigger brushes, but now he's using a number 2, which is probably about less than 1/8 of an inch, smaller than this, and to make a continuous 3/16 line, that become a real challenge for him.
You have to have a steady hand.
Yes, you do. And we use a maul stick, and that is a stick in which we can lay on the surface and hold our hand off slightly. That way we can work over wet materials without getting into it. And that's something that's been used for hundreds of years by sign writers and artisans. Likely Michelangelo used that when doing the work on the Sistine Chapel and other places.
When you're working on a ceiling, how are you reaching it?